Hello?
Oh, hi, yeah, this is, that negative thought you've been having, and I just can't let you try and change yourself without a fight, so, go ahead and just turn the show off, okay? And, yeah, everything's still fine.
This is Blindsight with your host, Bill Lundgren, an AINC original podcast.
You serious?
We're not holding back truth. We're here to help you heal and become the best you possible. Here's the chair, here's the pillow, here's Bill.
Hi there. Welcome to Blindsight, which is produced by the Audio Information Network of Colorado. I'm Bill Lundgren, your host for this program, and I'm pleased to welcome someone who's going to be telling us of some new devices, new ways that we can find relaxation, and that we all know how important that is. Our guest today is Suzannah Long, and I welcome you, Suzanne, to Blindsight.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, and I look forward to talking. Actually, my name is Suzannah. Just my mom would be screaming in my ear saying, "Wait a minute! I didn't name her Suzanne. It's Suzannah. Don't take the ah out of her name."
Sorry about that.
That's okay. It's all beautiful.
Well, before we get into the work that you do, can you give us a little bit of background on you? What brings you to the work that you're doing?
Well, in my early young years, I was a dancer. We moved to New York my junior year of high school, and so I danced professionally. So music and movement have always been a very important part of my life. And really, as a dancer, you learn to listen with your whole body. And so I've always found that when I'm stressed out or something, that just taking some time out to either listen to nature or take some time out just to tune inward and listen to music can be very releasing of stress for me personally. And so, but I was had given up my dance career basically and was living in Washington, D.C., and selling software. And my ex-husband was a counter sniper with the Secret Service and a former Marine, and sadly got injured on a job. And because of his injury, they retired him in his early mid-30s. And we both went through a very, very traumatic time, and sadly our marriage didn't survive it. So I found myself not dancing anymore, had given up my dance career, was stressed to the max, selling software with a $20 million quota, and just started praying, God, why am I really here? And actually had started a meditation practice just to deal with my own stress and anxiety over all the life changes I was going through. And this was in 1996, and I had a vision of creating spaces in corporate offices, schools, airports, hospitals that would incorporate light, sound, and aroma. And in this vision, I saw people walking up, putting their hand on this device that was a biofeedback technology. Certainly wasn't where it is today, but at this time, I just saw people putting a hand on their device, and this device would read what was going on with them bioenergetically, and then they would walk into this space and lay on this lounger that somehow delivered music tactily, so that you felt the music you hear resonating through you like a musical massage. And then the lighting and some of the aromatherapy would coordinate with that. So it was basically a vibrational healing experience. And so I found the book that an organization called the Heart Math had written, called From Chaos to Coherence. And they were working with a lot of corporations and particularly in healthcare, doctors and nurses, to help them de-stress. And they had this biofeedback device and they were teaching people a breathing technique and just to really tune into their body and their heart primarily, because they had found the reason why they're called heart math is they had found scientifically that when your heart is in a coherent or harmonic resonance, and you are sensing or feeling the feeling of love, compassion, or appreciation, your body mind as a whole operates more efficiently. And so they were actually So I read this book and I found out they were doing a conference, and I just was feeling called to really, explore this vision I had. And it was interesting that I learned they had this biofeedback technology. So I went to their conference and I was talking to them. And I said, I had this vision in meditation of creating spaces that would really incorporate this biofeedback technology. But there was this lounger that somehow delivered music tactily. And they said, well, we actually know a guy that invented a lounger like that. And they had brought it into Cisco Systems at the time to work with type A programmers that were becoming highly burnt out. And they found that when they were trying to get these type A individuals to kind of drop in and feel their heart and feel love, compassion, appreciation, they were a little resistant of that because they were just so in their head. And yet when they put them in this lounger, they would go there and basically stimulate the body's natural relaxation response in less than 5 minutes. And through this research study, yes. So you're lying in a lounger that you're feeling the music you simultaneously hear resonate through you like a musical massage. And so at Cisco Systems in this study, they found that productivity scores increased, camaraderie scores increased, and just the burnout rate was significantly reduced. So anyway, they were telling me the story, and so they told me the name of the gentleman who invented this lounger, and I called him, and sure enough, when I saw the lounger, I was like, gosh, that's exactly what I saw in my vision. So it was one of these things that was kind of wild. And so I went and met this gentleman, and he had been developing sound healing environments for quite a long time, had been a young concert pianist, and found that he was able to perceive sound beyond what most people are, and found that when he would go deep into nature and listen to particularly the sound of the creek in the Nantahala Forest in North Carolina, that he observed what he then named the so chord, which is just a B flat harmonic realm that the earth was probably resonating at that time. So he came back and reproduced that, and had been working with a lot of people, but sadly he was much more of an inventor and a musician, and a lot of people made a lot of promises and they didn't follow through with. So financially he was in a really bad state when I called him, but I flew out there to meet him and experienced his geodesic sound dome that he had worked with a psychologist in Atlanta at the time to develop in a place called the Mind Spa. And they were working. They ended up bringing this dome also into this space, in addition to the lounger he had created. And they were helping people with all kinds of disabilities, and also even Parkinson's and MS, and a lot of different things that they just found a lot of the symptoms of these diseases were reduced. So anyway, his name is Barry Oser, and I ended up investing and moving him here to Colorado in 2002. And we formed a company called Sound Solutions, and got 5 patents. And one of them was certainly this transducer that takes, basically, it's delivering sound at the speed of sound of water versus air. So you're feeling it resonate through your bones, body, and blood, like a musical massage. And through that sensory integration input, when you're hearing and feeling the same input, the same music, the same sounds, it creates a very relaxing experience for the body, because part of what we all experience is there's chaos when we're hearing and feeling something different, or for those who are able to visualize or see with their physical eyes, it can just closing your eyes actually is one of the best ways to get out of the beta brainwave states and allow your body mind to really expand its consciousness, so to speak. And I was thinking about, after we had the talk the other day briefly, I was thinking about one of the most profound experiences I had in my journey to really look at. After I had this vision, I agreed to, I had to use myself as a guinea pig. So I traveled around, not only obviously looking at the biofeedback technology and then meeting Barry, but also just other programs that I felt were great for stress reduction and performance improvement and so forth. So anyway, I attended this. I moved to Dallas before I left the computer software industry, working for Oracle Corporation, But again, I was still stressed to the max, and I went to a whole life expo at that time, and there was a gentleman there who's a shaman, but also had a PhD in psychology, and he was teaching at Baylor University. And he had designed this program with another gentleman called trance dancing. And he would in this. So I was fascinated by that just because of my whole dance background. And so I went to the workshop he was doing on certifying people to do this. And at the time, I was still had a $20 million quota, working for Oracle, selling to the aerospace and defense industry. And I've always been a very spiritual person, or very honoring of a higher realm, God, spirit, whatever you choose to call it, that and really listening to that still small voice inside that guides me. But this was a whole nother realm. So I went to this trance dance thing, and what they had us do was blindfold us and do what's known as the Kundalini breath of fire, taking 2 slow inhalations through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. And through that breath, and through the actually taking away of your physical eyesight, they found that people would activate deeper parts of the brain. And in this trance dance experience I did, it was like a 4 or 5, maybe even 7-day experience. I all of a sudden had visions like I've never had in my life. I saw myself dancing in Egypt in past times. I saw myself flying in the rafters of this cathedral. And I saw myself in Tibet these were all different dances, but I saw myself in Tibet trying to get the men to listen to the voices of the children. So it was as real as I see with my physical eyesight. So I was thinking about that after we spoke, and just about that was probably the most transformational experience I ever had, to say, wow, there's so much more to this world than we're able to see or even sense or feel sometimes, unless we allow ourselves to de-stress and really tune into the heart and the coherence of the heart. So my journey has just been really using myself as a guinea pig in exploration, but we formed So Sound Solution, and it's been highly successful. We're working with spas globally and with all kinds of walks of life, actually, but sold that company back in February. And now I'm getting back to the second part of the vision, was creating more of a wellness center to really support community around the healing power of sound and music and storytelling, and really understanding some of the laws, universal laws of resonance, and that how important it is, particularly now more than ever, for us to come together in a heart space to really support each other on our journey and honor each other's unique perspective of the world. And I think sound and music, sometimes is referred to as the language of angels.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's a powerful tool, but when you feel it and hear it, it takes it to a whole nother dimension of potential in the body mind.
When you're talking about sound, are you talking about Beethoven, the Ninth Symphony, or you're talking about random, I'll call it noise just for to draw a distinction? Is that the sound is not a pattern that is composed, but it's just random sounds or different instruments? What do you mean by sound?
So any music or sounds could be used, like through the lounger, for example, but certain music is going to resonate more through the body than others.
I see.
And also certain frequencies. There's all kinds of research in even frequencies of sound. And there's an organization called the Monroe Institute that actually was the first to come out with what's known as hemisync, which is a synchronized sound that kind of triggers the right and left brain to come into a synchronization, because there's a little space between the sound. So there's so much more to the idea of sound and frequency, but any music can be used through it, but certain music will resonate better. And certainly as a sound healing artist, or a person who is a channel for sacred sound and sacred language, when I'm working with somebody, for example, doing some healing work known as Reiki, a lot of times I'll just channel a sound or bring through a voice that reminds that person of perhaps a childhood experience or something that is interfering with them breathing more completely or causing pain, because the body is a storage of memories. You know, I mean, we all have traumas, and sometimes when those traumas are so significant, we don't release that energy. So that's kind of where the field of energy work comes in. But sound also, as we know through the field of ultrasound, can help release blockages in the body or body armor that's held tight. So I think we're just certainly in the ancient temples of Egypt. I mean, they had sound healing temples. The Mayan culture, the Greek cultures. There's a lot of Native American cultures, Aboriginal cultures. You know, and music has been used for eons, but I think quantum physics is just finally now, or science is just now catching up to what a lot of the ancient seers and masters understood intuitively.
Well, I was thinking, I took my dog for a walk as I normally do in the late morning, and he goes along very, he's a guide dog. He's being very respectful. But when I start making happy sounds, not words or anything, but like, nonsense sounds, he starts picking up and he's skipping, and, he, as long as the sidewalk is safe, he goes skipping and he's happy as a clam to hear those sounds. And I think that's something akin to what you're talking about. Or a baby, when you coo to a baby, the baby responds to those kinds of sounds that have no real meaning, but just impart a message of peace and whatever. And this is what you're talking about. It could be music, but it could also be those kinds of sounds that relax us.
Absolutely. In the field of sound therapy or sound healing, it's talked about that sound is a carrier wave for emotion or energy in motion. So certainly we can tell when the sound of someone's voice is coming from that place of a loving, happy, compassionate place, or when somebody's irritated. I mean, you can certainly tell if somebody's more in their head or more in their heart by the sound of their voice. So certainly animals, more than anybody, more than us. Sometimes they're smarter than us humans.
Yeah, that's
because
right.
they're so aware of that. Yes, and certainly babies as well. I mean, I think sometimes we get so caught up in our day that we forget about the sounds we're putting out and about the frequency that we're even resonating at.
Right.
And so, yeah, and I think we all feel it, but how much we're paying attention or conscious of that feeling, and that's part of the mission of now what I'm creating called So Be It Studios, is to create that place to be. The place to be, I mean, like, it's cool because it's a place to be there's all kinds of music events, but also the place to be in resonance with your deeper potentiality or your sacred, I mean, moving into a deeper listening space. So you're listening to your body as the best GPS system you could ever have, and I think that's so important. So we sometimes get so in our head and just focus on the past versus being really present to our feeling in the body now, and realizing that when we drop into the heart and we listen from the heart, and act according to that, in coordination with or in coherence with the brain, it's amazing what we can manifest. Because thoughts create things, and then how we resonate with those thoughts or how we embody them or not really does manifest our reality, in my experience.
What would the studio look like?
So we had one open, but now we're kind of redesigning it. So it has 1,000 the initial one. I mean, we're going to be building these in all different shapes and sizes. We're actually working with an organization called Six Senses Resorts and Spas to build 2 of the geodesic sound domes in Saudi Arabia.
No kidding.
So the geodesic sound dome is a whole nother level, but the resonating floor, which actually we created one at the YMCA here in Lafayette that I teach Pilates on 5 days a week. And I do some sound healing meditations after some of those classes. So the resonating sound floor, it just again will take create the floor becomes almost like a drum head that you're feeling the music resonate through your feet, hands, and whole body. And so that's one level. And then the second level would be adding the geodesic structure, which contains the sound waves in a way that's very impactful, because it's like the geodesic structure is based on sacred geometry, and it reflects, so it creates a reflection of the molecules of the body. So when a group, for example, goes into that structure, there's a lot of coherence that can happen. So it can be used for team building or bringing families closer together and lots of different things. But so we're looking at initially offering the floor, the resonating sound floor, to be put into various studio spaces, and offering a whole plethora of classes that would, bring that to alive. But it also adds another component to just regular fitness classes or meditation classes. And then the geodesic sound dome as a main center, and then little pods around that could be individual healing spaces is kind of the footprint, so to speak.
Well, it's sort of like when we go into an empty house and we have all that echo. What I'm hearing you say is kind of utilizing that, that echo and that sound that we say, oh, we've got to put furniture in to block. We say to utilize it instead of eliminating it as a way of getting some peace and serenity.
Yeah, it's actually taking that echo, so to speak, and organizing it. And that's where my partner, Barry, who you all might want to talk to too, can go into deeper, because he has so much more experience about creating the sound healing spaces. But I'm more about the programming and launching a program that I call Listening with Your Whole Body Listening, and or Uplift Your Vibes, which is kind of a combination of a movement and this listening. So I'm more about the programming and bringing it to market, but he's more able to speak more about how do you take that echo and make it more acoustically coherent, so that it does have a calming effect.
That could really change the way we build structures in our own home, for example.
Absolutely.
I was thinking as you were describing it, some news has come in recently about inventor Thomas Edison. And they found that somebody has Thomas Edison's Steinway piano, and they found teeth marks in the piano.
Oh my goodness!
Because Edison was deaf, had severe hearing loss, and so what Edison would do is to bite on the wood of the piano, and would be able to hear the sound through his teeth. And be able to hear sound that he couldn't hear otherwise. So that's where he's utilizing the whole body, or at least his head, to be able to hear what he couldn't hear naturally. And it feels like we're talking about something very similar.
Yeah, we don't just hear with our ears, we do actually hear or feel with our whole body. And so
right.
That's where you can enhance that hearing experience, because when you're more aware of, it's like when you get chills when a crystal glass is shine, there's so much with that, or just understanding. So sound has a way of getting us more attuned to higher frequencies of energy, I think. So that's definitely, and I think that was the case too with Beethoven in his later years.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another example. Yeah. And of course, for someone who has blindness, is losing one of the senses. So, people think when we're blind, we have extra senses. We don't. We just use the others perhaps more acutely. And that's what you're talking about. We're blind. We may feel, or hopefully will feel, or learn to feel more sound, more in more ways than identifying where we are by sight. And we can even, when I walk the dog, I have to listen to sound in order to guide him, tell him which way to go, like traffic or whatever. And I don't have my eyesight to help me with that. So and I have hearing impairment as well. So I have to use all the senses that are left, including the amount of hearing I have, to give me cues that I wouldn't otherwise have, that the average person would have. And that's what you're talking about.
Yes, exactly. And so I'm happy to gift you with some time to experience the lounge or come experience the floor if you would be interested in that, because I think it's amazing. And I think, our subtle when we're so stressed out, we're actually holding our body, our muscles tight, and so a lot of people, when they lie in the sound chair, for example, will say, well, how did it know where my pain is? And when it's not that it's that intelligent of a system, it's just that the music or the resonance will find the tightness it will resonate more where there's tight muscles, and then it will slowly start to unravel that as you breathe more deeply. So I think that's also where the deeper awareness comes in, because if we're out and we're tense, naturally to protect ourselves, or we're in the stress response to protect ourselves. But when we're able to remind the body and kind of how to breathe more deeply and be in a more coherent state of listening from a space of curiosity and not necessarily defensive space, it's amazing how that opens us up, our awareness up. And so I think feeling is healing and feeling is knowing. And I think there's so much more to us coming into that heart coherence as we're moving through this very interesting time in human evolution. So yes, absolutely. I would love to gift you with a time in the chair or the floor or whatever might support you too. So
it certainly would be interesting to see, as a blind person, as a hearing impaired person, to find out what other senses that I'm not even aware of are coming into play to keep me out of trouble.
Yes.
It's about the only way I can put it, yeah. Or when we walk into a room, people talk about being able to feel, and they're blind, they can feel the dimensions of the room, or at least the shape of the room, and be able to maneuver with sensitivity. That's the kind of thing that you're talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah. Barry, my business partner, actually, when he tells a story about, he had one of his piano teachers was blind, and he was amazed that he knew exactly who walked into the room just by perhaps even before they spoke. So certainly from the sound of their voice, they would know, but there was he could sense that subtle vibe of that energy. And I think, the quantum physics again is proving that everything's based on energetics. So I think the more aware we become aware of the energy we're resonating with, and then how that's being reflected out into the world or back to us, is significant, certainly in how we relate to life itself. Because if we're holding a place of more peaceful resonance and coherent in our body, then we become like a tuning fork for that, and we attract. The law of attraction, or the law of resonance, says that we attract what we're resonating with, whether consciously or not. And that this journey through life is kind of the gift in that, for us to fine tune ourselves, to find that peaceful place inside, and don't shoot the messenger. If something comes across very, you can always be that peaceful presence. And so that's part of the mission and purpose of So Be It Studios too, is to realize that, how we can individually not only change our lives, but change the lives of people around us by being that constant, finding that coherent place inside where peace resides.
So if we could put a geodesic dome in the Capitol building, we might change the whole course of human history.
Yeah, well, we might have a lot of people that weren't resonating with that fly away. Who knows? Definitely a lot of changes along those lines.
Well, how can we as blind people access what you're talking about if we don't have a studio near us? Are the chairs available for sale that we could have one in our home? Would that be beneficial, or what are we talking about?
Yeah, well, certainly here locally, I would invite anybody to contact me and come to the YMCA, because that's why we donated the floor to them, or at our cost, to develop that, to do deeper research with it. So that's in Lafayette, here in the Colorado area. But on a broader scale, we sold So Sound Solutions, the original company that was developing the loungers, to a company called Therabody. And so they've just designed a lounger that they've come out with that you can certainly buy for your home. We were working with Denver Mattress. We actually sponsored quite a lot of families with children on the spectrum of autism with beds. And we were starting to do a 10-bed hospital study to look at how we could reduce, pain medications and so forth in the hospital. But Denver Mattress is, I'm not sure the status of that, if they're working with Therabody to continue that, because when we sold the company, they kind of went on with it and decided not to work with Barry and I moving forward. Sadly, kind of, but Therabody is definitely moving forward with it. So those products could be purchased on their website.
So, so the sound is, how are you producing the sound? Are there discs or, what, or is that proprietary information? But how does this all happen?
So you can plug in an iPhone or an iPad or whatever and use, again, as I said, any music. And then there's a cord that would go into the lounger or the bed or the floor. You can also plug a live instrument into it. And like, for example, if you have a guitarist and you strum the guitar and it's plugged into the chair, the chair becomes, like the guitar itself, or people will even say it's like lying in a cello. Therabody, I know, has come out with an app too, that they were actually originally working with Barry, and then they're working with some other artists to develop specific music for it. And that will be something we're doing through the studio. Mm-hmm. Part of my vision is to not only, let it be a recording studio where we also can capture live events and support people that are creating music. And certainly the sound healing artist community, like Tibetan bowls and didgeridoos and drums and all of those kind of native instruments. But also the whole idea of storytelling and capturing live stories, and certainly the bringing community back together, where the children have stories come alive as the elephant thumps across the floor, and hearing the story of the elderly, and kind of the vision of the studio is not just using sound for healing, but the place to give people a voice and give community a voice that can be then captured if somebody wants to then play that later in a chair or their bed or whatever. Mm-hmm. So the bed was a very interesting to me, just because I think there's so many people do have trouble sleeping and don't realize how noise impacts them. And so having children's bedtime stories or guided meditations that would resonate through the bed. So all of that we're still kind of working through after the sale, but I feel like the bed is very significant, and the floor is certainly also the place for community.
Well, I'm curious, when we talk about stories or even the music, are we talking about it being total loud sound, or are we talking about it just coming from different places in the bed so that we feel it in every part of our body? I have a little trouble conceptualizing. When we go in nature, sound is coming from everywhere. It's not loud. But I have the vision, particularly in the city, that the sound would have to be kind of loud and wake up the neighbors.
Yeah, no, the beautiful thing is it doesn't need to be as loud, because when you're feeling it, it doesn't need to be as loud, because you're augmenting the auditory with the vibration of the body. And so it is like going to a concert without hurting your ears. It's and then the geodesic sound dome, it definitely again is containing it. So it's a very different experience of how you're listening to music. And some of it can be louder, some of it can be very soft. Like for example, when we had our studio open initially, we would have a harp. A harpist come in and play, plug her harp into the floor as people practice yoga. And it was very soft, but very profoundly. Right. very beautifully profound in the body, because like if you're holding a yoga asana, for example, that's, hard to hold, she would really increase the amount the harp was producing just to help you kind of breathe through that. So there's a lot to that, feeling it. And it is hard to envision if you haven't experienced it, but
yeah.
So you'll have to come experience it.
Yeah. Well, I know one of the hospitals here in Denver had a harpist in the intensive care unit, and she would play out in the hall and play the harp as a way of, and I know some of the people were in the ventilator and were hearing that music, and I wonder, I know some people thought, this is almost like they've gone to heaven and they hear the harpist, but it's actually, I think for some people, very soothing.
Yeah, the whole field of music therapy is definitely also growing. And I think, both working with people on listening deeper with their whole body, as well as playing instruments or giving their body a voice, is all part of this growing field.
Well, what other options are available to us? What would you say, look, how do we, as a society, as an individual, work on getting some of the peace that we very definitely need?
Yeah, well, certainly getting a lounge chair or exploring the bed. And if people have specific questions, I can give my email address if that's helpful. And I'm happy to talk to people individually on how I can best support them, because that's kind of my higher mission and purpose at this point in time. But I think the deeper message is just realizing, also spending time in nature. I mean, going where you're away from traffic, and realizing when you are stressed out, or even creating a little sanctuary space in your own home where you have music, that you just play, or going, there's nothing, for me, I love sitting out and just listening to the birds, or having time when I'm feeling overly stressed, realizing how important it is just to find that space, whether you create it in your home or whether you take the time or make the time to go deep into nature, and just move into a place of appreciation for the birds, for the wind rustling through the trees, just becoming more aware of how the sounds you're experiencing are impacting you, and also the sound that you're making, even the little voice in your head that speaks to you. I mean, just being gentle and loving with yourself, and how you speak to yourself and speak to others, I think does amazing work. I mean, and just when you are feeling stressed, but to go into nature, take some deep breaths, take a moment to appreciate the birds singing, the wind, or just the silence. I think sometimes we just need to realize that, and nature is the beautiful antidote to our stress, for sure.
Right. Now, you teach meditation and yoga as part of your program, so that's something that people could access.
Yeah, I actually teach Pilates. Pilates, not yoga, but and then yes, I do sound healing meditations on Tuesdays and Thursday, or I'm actually right now just only on Thursday at the YMCA. There's a 15-minute sound healing meditation at the end of my Pilates class. And again, I would welcome anybody to contact me, and I'm happy to get the Y to gift anybody to have an experience. And then developing other programs with the new studio we're going to be opening. So we can stay in touch on that too.
Where will the studio be opening? Do you have a location?
We don't have that. We haven't done that. We haven't confirmed that yet. We're kind of, with all the craziness in the world right now, we're kind of letting that settle down a little bit, and then we'll open it.
Well, but for now, certainly a start might be, from what I'm hearing from you, one, you said to get out in nature, but the other is to get more into mindfulness and the meditative techniques that are available to help us to get more in touch with who and what we are, and to stay away from politics for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And just really, the more that we can each, because the one thing I hope that we learned from COVID is that we're all connected through our breath. And what we breathe out, we breathe in, be it physically or even emotionally. And so the more we can be that peaceful presence, the more we can let that resonate out from us. And I think that's, yes. And there's a lot on YouTube, for example, there's a lot of sound healing programs and meditations that incorporate what I referred to earlier, known as hemisync, and or what a lot of other people have replicated, known as binaural beat, to stimulate that binaural beat music, or even what they call the solfeggio frequencies, which were actually discovered eons ago, that are specific frequencies that can stimulate, that correlate with different emotions. There's a lot of different controversy about that. But anyway, there's a lot on YouTube just to listen to and find that you can just listen to that are guided meditations and or visualization kind of exercises. I tend to listen to one before I go to bed at night and when I wake up first thing in the morning, and just setting the tone for the day. And there's also, I don't know, just coming to mind, there's amazing work by Dr. Joe Dispenza, who is a chiropractor who is working with people all over the world, of helping them overcome all kinds of disabilities just through a meditation practice. So there's a lot out there to learn from. And it's, I think the whole field of sound therapy is just in its infancy, being rediscovered. I think a lot of the ancient cultures understood it more than we do today. But again, science is kind of catching up to the art of healing.
Again, science does its own thing that had to go back to the beginning in order to understand what the early people knew already, and just relearn it and incorporate it. Like, just as science, so much of science now, with mindfulness techniques, as we call it, is the discovery of exactly what you're saying. The meditation is part of the healing arts. And I certainly appreciate you bringing all that exciting information to our listeners in Blindsight. And who do you want to give us the best way to contact you if we want to pursue this further?
Yeah, I don't have the So Be It website up yet. That should be up actually probably within the next week or two. But eventually it will be sobeitstudios.live. But for right now, just Suzannah Long, my name, SUZANNAHLONG @gmail.com is probably the best way to reach me. And then as things progress, I'm happy to keep those who are interested in touch, and we can maybe circle back for you to post that or whatever makes sense as a next step. But I'm very excited to support your community for sure, and would love to do whatever I can. So suzannahlong @gmail.com, and the YMCA in Lafayette is where I teach, and happy to host somebody there anytime just to experience the floor and or the lounger sometime too. So
we'd certainly like to keep in touch, and for you to keep us up to date on what's happening with the studio. It certainly would be something that we can let people know, maybe have you on and broadcast from your studio. Who knows?
I'm very intrigued by that idea. And as I was, we were mentioning in the first interview, our first introductory call we had, that, I've wanted to do a podcast myself. So I'm curious to, just because I think inviting other sound healing artists and other musicians and that to be and also, as I said, capturing live things at the studio. So
sure,
we may be able to do that at the Y, or definitely when we open the studio. I would love to work with you all to do that. That would be amazing.
That'd be great. Thank you for being here. Keep in touch. And I'm going to sign off. This is Bill Lundgren, your host for Blindsight. And look for further episodes of Blindsight on whatever media you use for your podcast. Thank you and goodbye.